Donald Trump's lawyer, Steve the Pitbull Sadow, has now filed a new motion to further expose District Attorney Fani Willis. And it's really not like Fani Willis really needed any more help to embarrass herself and her office even further. In fact, critics have already called her out for alleged corruption and how she's used taxpayer money to enrich herself. Many folks claim that, she did this through her ex-lover, Nathan Wade, who she paid almost 10 times more compared to other attorneys within the DA's office. There's also the YSL RICO trial of Young Thug, where the defense claims that the prosecution has been intimidating witnesses, with the said intimidation happening right in front of Judge Glanville. Now, all of this is actually showing us that the justice system, at least in Fulton County, is highly flawed. It's really at a point where it kind of favors those who are in power. And if you go against this narrative, well, you're going to be sent to jail. I mean, just ask Brian Steele, because this almost happened to the defense attorney in Young Thug's case, Brian Steele, who challenged this judge because he found out about this secret, undercover, behind closed doors meeting between the DA's office and Judge Ural Glanville in his chambers, as he says. And you guys remember how he got after this meeting was leaked. I mean, the judge, he stood up, he lost it. The judge stood up, started yelling at the defense attorney instead of admitting to this illegal act. Now, we got Ashley Merchant showing up in court to teach the judge a lesson about how civil and how criminal contempt works. Apparently, the judge didn't know. And now we got Steve Sadow blasting DA Fani Willis, and things are not looking good for her. Now, before we really get into this, before I share this next clip with you guys, please take a second, hit the like button for the video. I really appreciate you guys. Thanks so much for subscribing to the channel and sharing this video. You guys are amazing, and I love your support.
Trump's legal team is now asking the Court of Appeals to hear oral arguments to disqualify Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis. So this comes as the Court of Appeals considered Trump's request to remove Willis for alleged misconduct. Superior Court Judge Scott McAfee previously ruled that Willis could actually stay on the case. Well, according to statistics, and this puts it into perspective, the court has only granted oral argument cases 32% to 41% of the time since 2019. So if the new request is granted, oral arguments could begin in October. Just last week, the Georgia Appeals Court put a halt to the election case. It adds that no Superior Court proceedings can be held until the Appeals Court decides whether or not Judge Scott McAfee's disqualification ruling can stand. Trump's lead attorney, Steve Sadow, released a statement following the filing saying, quote, "We believe oral argument will assist the court by highlighting and clarifying the reasons why the case should be dismissed and Fulton County DA Fani Willis should be disqualified for her misconduct."
Now, the state has tried to appeal the motion from Donald Trump's team, something that Steve Sadow has called a Hail Mary motion. Now, he's also filed a motion that questions Fani Willis's intent, citing that the defense team has been granted by the Georgia Court of Appeals the right to appeal after due and proper consideration, guys. Now, this is huge. This is coming from the Georgia Court of Appeals. This is a huge boost for Trump and his team. And this is why so many people are questioning the DA's office, because it seems as if they just kind of want things to go their way just because they said so. Not because there's actual legal basis for what they're saying, which led Steve Sadow to conclude that this is their way of attempting to stop the appellate review of Fani Willis's misconduct. And Steve Sadow, he's not pulling any punches here, because he says that Fani Willis is trying so hard not to get disqualified from this election interference case. This would pretty much destroy her career. This would destroy her ability to sell her new book that she's trying to make money off of. I mean, this would literally, it could theoretically really cripple her from her career perspective and even from an income perspective, even though she's shown to be deeply conflicted and has even engaged and continues to engage in extrajudicial forensic misconduct. Now, the DA's office even tried to change the law when they said that the Court of Appeals was powerless to overturn the trial's order denying the dismissal of the case and the disqualification of Willis. Steve Sadow, he argued that this is not how the law works. And it's further stated here that the joint application for interlocutory appeal has made the issue very clear. The majority of the issues being raised are issues of law, not fact. Because as we've seen with all of Donald Trump's cases, his defense teams have all been following the law and following proper procedures. They want to do things right. and they want the records to show it. Now, if only Fani Willis could say the same thing. This kind of reminds me that Fani Willis's office has even refused to allow access to public records. And because of this, the Merchant law firm with Ashley Merchant is suing them. That's right, guys. Again, this is based on the law. Now, if it's a public record, then it should be transparent to everyone, right? I mean, that just kind of makes sense. Otherwise, it wouldn't be a public record, right? Especially taxpayers, they're the ones who are funding these people. Taxpayers like me and you are paying these people's salaries, their bonuses, they're funding. This is where the tax budget comes from, which again kind of reminds me of what happened with Amanda Timpson after Fani Willis and her office, right? You guys remember that particular whistleblower, Amanda Timpson, right? None of us should forget, because it looks like she's the only one there who wanted these people to work honestly. I mean, she revealed that Fani Willis's office wanted to use federal grant money on personal purchases, but she didn't outright just go to the public with this information. She tried to get the DA's attention first. She was going through the proper channels. She wasn't trying to put the DA's office on blast like that. And then she got fired for doing that. Now, you would think that the DA's office would have looked out for Amanda Timpson, but that wasn't the case. What is it with Fani Willis and her disdain for people who recognize that rules and law exist? But going back to this motion from Steve Sadow, it says that the state is focused on a clearly erroneous standard. This is in relation to how they want to focus on factual findings compared to what's written in the law. He adds that this is a calculated, disingenuous attempt to mislead the court for the obvious purpose of preventing interlocutory appellate review of the DA's misconduct. It further states that with both the court, with the trial court and the appeals court agreeing to review this case, it's apparent that these rules are critical and that the trial court made a mistake when they chose not to disqualify Fani Willis. You guys remember that even Judge McAfee said that there was an odor of mendacity hanging over Fani Willis and Nathan Wade, right? Everyone smelled it. And yet he chose to have the two of them decide which one gets to stay on Trump's case. Now, Steve Sadow argues that this mistake, it must be corrected. As he said, fatally infect all subsequent proceedings, and it would lead to the reversal of any obtained convictions. This in turn would ultimately waste the time of the court, parties, both parties involved, and I mean, heck, all 14 to 18 co-defendants, but most importantly, the taxpayers. This goes on for a few more pages at a minimum, right? But you guys get the point. The DA's office, they want this motion dismissed without bias. Now, like I said, time and time again, Donald Trump's team, they're going through the proper procedures, so there's really not much that Fani Willis or really anybody else can do at this point but to dismiss this motion, which this is kind of similar to what her team is trying to do with the Young Thug RICO trial, where the judge is seemingly helping the DA's office. And in even worse news for Fani Willis, the Georgia Court of Appeals has suspended a case against Donald Trump, a co-defendant. Just recently, the appeals court overturned Judge Scott McAfee's initial ruling in the case against former Coffee County elections director Misty Hampton. Willis initially planned to proceed with the prosecution of 6 of Donald Trump's co-defendants, those who were not party to the motion to remove her from Donald Trump's election interference case. Now, I think it's pretty clear that Fani Willis is on a losing streak with both Steve Sadow and Ashley Merchant, just kind of embarrassing herself left and right? But I actually did a previous video where I talked about the situation between Ashley Merchant and Fani Willis in more detail. It's related to what I said earlier about, public documents and how the DA's office is trying to withhold it from the public. Make sure you guys check that video out. I'll leave a link for it like right here or something like that. Maybe even in the description down below. Be sure to check that video out. You're not going to believe what Fani Willis's own attorneys are saying in court. Guys, they're letting it out. Anyway, cat's out of the bag now. Before I go, I just want to thank y'all so much for hitting the like button. Thank you for supporting the channel. Thank you for subscribing and sharing the video. You guys are amazing. And I'll see you on the next one.